Welcome to the Daily Tokyo Hockey Show on the FIH YouTube channel with me, Sarah Juggins. It's quarter-finals day in the women's competition at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, and it's fair to say there has been some drama and excitement at the Oi Hockey Stadium. In a packed show today, we'll be looking in depth at all four matches and discussing how it is looking for the semi-finals, which will take place on Wednesday. Joining the show today, we welcome back Jackie Mwangi, Kenyan international and now head coach to the Kenyan women's hockey team. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Sarah.
Great to see you again. Making her show debut is Margaret Mengo, Namibia's captain, who most recently led her national indoor side to qualify for the Indoor Hockey World Cup, which is taking place in Belgium next year. So, hi, Margaret. Great to see you today.
Hello, Sarah. I'm glad and excited to be on the show today. Thank you.
Fantastic. And picking yourself up off the floor after a quite traumatic final quarter-final match, we welcome back Alex Danson, Great Britain and England striker, who was part of a team that won bronze at the London 2012 Games and gold at Rio 2016. I imagine you're feeling slightly emotionally drained, Alex.
Honestly, I am completely exhausted. Watching is so much more stressful than playing. Everyone says, were you nervous? I was like, no, you're just doing the job. Honestly, I felt sick, I felt nervous, I was screaming at the telly. Mum had to take my daughter at one point because I was being too loud. So yeah, absolutely delighted with the final result.
So Alex has just put into words how every single hockey fan feels when their teams are playing and they can't do anything about it. Margaret, as this is your first time on the show, let's come to you first. What's been your overall impression of the hockey to this point?
No, I think it has been phenomenal games, good competition. Every team, every country was being out there doing themselves proud and really fighting for the end whistle. So it has been phenomenal games. What was key things that I took away, it was the differentiator was either match fitness and focusing till at the end, or just having that plan B to make it to the end whistle as well when you were trailing as in a game. But it was phenomenal hockey. Excited for us as players. It's good to see and watch and learn as well, and also just to see what can you learn out of each game. So it was phenomenal hockey, and I think Alex also said it's amazing to watch. You feel more stress watching. You actually sometimes want to jump into the TV and really say, like, can I just play along? But it has been exciting and a lot of surprises, especially from the quarterfinals today. Not surprises. I think people expected certain countries to lead the Olympics because of what has been happening with the pro leagues the recent years and the other competitions and international friendlies. But I'm actually happy to see other countries also being part of the last four, for example.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about that in a lot more detail soon. I'd just like to pick up on one point, actually, with all of you. I mean, Alex, you've only been a short time away from the international game. Same with you, Jackie, and Margaret, you're still in the international game. But one of the things that I think has been quite phenomenal at this Games is the increased use of 3D skills. And we saw it in that last game there. Players are, Sarah Robertson it was, she did this amazing little dribble in the air through the D. So coming to you first, Alex, is it something that we're seeing more and more of?
Yeah, I think there's always, critical edges players are trying to gain, new skills they're trying to get together, and, playing the ball in the air is so difficult to defend. It's impossible because if you just make one wrong move, you've given away a foul. If you're in the circle, that's a corner. So, yeah, I think the speed, putting the ball in the air, aerials, we saw it from Spain in that quarterfinal with Great Britain today. Playing in the air is definitely almost a key feature of the game now because it's just so difficult to defend.
Yeah. Is it something you coach, Jackie, a lot? I mean, is it something you spend a lot of your time with your players on?
It's a skill, it's a basic skill that we've been working on, but I think there's now an emphasis on it going forward. The world is changing, it must change as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was obvious the other day when Susanna Townsend, for example, picked that ball out of the air to strike it into the goal. It would have been an easy goal to miss, but because her ability to pluck the ball out of the air allowed that goal to be scored. That's fantastic. Just to recap on today's results, actually, before we dive in for a deeper analysis of all the games. In the opening game, we saw the real Argentina finally stand up. They beat Germany 3-0 in convincing style, actually. We then saw an extraordinary match between Australia and India, and I know that that result has still got all of us reeling a little bit, although one of our show guests, Cedric, did actually call it, so we will tip our hat to Cedric and his knowledge. Third quarter-final, it was business as usual for the Dutch as they put in another convincing performance to beat New Zealand 3-0. And then we had a crackerjack match between Spain and Great Britain. It went to the wire, it finished 2-2, and then we saw Maddie Hinch in the GB goal put in a world-class performance to save 4 of the shootout attempts and put GB through to the semi-finals. So we'll come to Alex first. We now know the teams that are going to be lining up for the semi-finals, but we also need to spare a thought for the teams that are leaving. Normally, if you're knocked out, you have a chance to speak to family and friends at the ground. Then you spend time together just processing what's happened and reflecting on the fact that you're actually at an Olympics. But for these guys, I felt this today and I felt it yesterday during the men's games. There's pretty much an empty stadium, isn't there? And then they're pretty much out of there. That has to be a very, very tough end to your Olympics, particularly if for many players it's their last Olympics.
I think it's so difficult to say. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Even watching the GB Spain game when we won, even the celebrations are slightly dimmed down, I think, without a crowd. I think what the crowd bring you when you're winning is adrenaline, is that extra bit of fight. And I think you see that. Athletes are very good, so you don't necessarily see it until you've won, and then everyone goes bananas. And it was a bit quieter today. Yeah, conversely, thinking of Australia, who've had a fantastic tournament, and it's tournament hockey, but the quarterfinals are really cruel. It's make or break. It's basically second part of the tournament, and you kind of forget, it doesn't matter where you finished. If this Olympics has shown us anything, if you're in the game, either one of you can win it. Yeah. So I think what I really hope is done now is for the teams that have gone out, your Germany, your Spain, et al., they come together. They're going to have to look after one another because, like you say, family and friends who are so enormous are not part of this game. So, thank goodness for phones and FaceTime. Yes. I'm sure they'll do that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. A thought goes to those teams. Stay together, look after one another, and get home to your loved ones. But I mean, they could be very proud, all of them, of the performances that have been put in at these games.
Yeah, absolutely. The first game today, Argentina, as we said, we took the game to Germany. To this point, Germany had looked a really good side. They looked a good bet for a semi-final berth. Solid performances to take second place in Pool B. Today, they almost seemed overwhelmed by the occasion. We saw very little of Charlotte Stappenhorst. We saw very little of Lisa Altenberg, Pia Martins. Even Anna Schroeder was quite quiet, which is incredible. In contrast, Argentina looked lively from the first few moments. And as soon as Agustina Albertario had scored, there was just this palpable sense of relief. And suddenly we were seeing a team that looked transformed. Jackie, is there a way of explaining how a team just simply fails to show up in a quarter-final moment like that? Because Germany, of all the teams you would expect to be mentally in tune with the occasion, it would be Germany. So, as a coach, as a player, what happens to stop a team from turning up?
Well, there's a lot of pressure that comes in from playing big matches. And in those big matches, you need those really those experienced players to step up, because you need to be able to carry the team during those times. And it's very difficult mentally. And if somebody doesn't step up, you need just that one person to step up. And sometimes the person that is supposedly required to step up sometimes is not able to. So maybe as a team today, they weren't able to just get into the groove of trying to push, as they've been pushing through the group stages. Unlucky for them. I had really hoped that they would at least get to the semis.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate for Germany, because like I say, they had been looking good. But I guess as well, you have to pay all sorts of tribute to Argentina and their match preparation. And Alex, as a coach, Carlos Retegu knows how to get ready for a big match, doesn't he? So he probably would. Well, he obviously would have watched the Germany performances, and he would know how to stamp on those big players.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got the likes of Baranoevo in there. You've got some absolutely fabulous players who have been there time and time again and know how to play the big games. If I'm honest, I'm not overly surprised about the result, because Argentina have done this many times. They're a bit quieter in the group. You get to the big games. They are such a patriotic, talented nation. When the big occasion comes, so does Argentina. So I didn't get to see the game live. I've seen some of the highlights, but I wasn't overly surprised. And I thought, the likes of Albertario are now on top of their game. They're scoring some great goals. You've got Mourinho in there. they've just got some very, very good players, and I think the results shown that today.
Yeah, I mean, we're just speaking about Delphina, again, she hasn't scored, but she has been at the heart of all the action. She's been the person creating. Maria Granato as well. I mean, she had lots of shots but didn't get on the score sheet. But again, she's a player who's so busy, and at times she was in the circle, in the defensive circle, defending as well as up attacking. Are these examples of the fluidity of the Argentinian team? Is this what makes them so difficult to play against?
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I think those players may not have got on the score sheet yet, but as you said, Delphi is one of the greatest goal scorers, I think, in the world, but she's also a playmaker. So she'll feed in those other players for the Albertarios et al. To get on the score sheet. I think they work hard back and front, which hasn't always been a traditional Argentinian way. It was very much forwards, off you go, 1v1, we'll beat you, we'll get our shots away. But, Granato is an absolute terrier. I have no doubt Delphi, Granata, Albertario, all of these players will start to get on the score sheet more as they progress to the semi-finals now. I love watching them play. I think they're a great team. I think it's going to be a really good matchup in the semi-final, and we'll see who plays up there.
Yeah. Megareth, discipline has been a little bit lacking in some of the games today, across the tournament. And again, this was characteristic of Germany because Argentina had a player yellow carded towards the end of the match. And that's the moment that you'd expect Germany to think, right, okay, we've got a player advantage, let's really push on that, but maintain our own discipline. What actually happened is instantly Germany also got a yellow. That sort of discipline, is it a breakdown because of panic amongst the players and a desperation to score a goal? Is it just showing that maybe their focus wasn't where it should have been today? How can you explain that sort of uncharacteristic mistake of something that should be within their control?
I think discipline is a very vital characteristics that you should have, especially in a big game like that, and a game that determines your next step in or progression in the tournament, as such as a Olympic tournament. And I think it's to do with focus and just having that immediate adapting to the situation as we go along. I mean, if you have two players sent off or one player, you need to immediately adapt to a structure that will not either create a gap within your team or that will create an opportunity if it's in your favor. So it is a very important characteristics, and I think that's where you need to immediately just switch on and just adapt to the change and just go with it, because you either see the opportunity or you either identify the gap and close the gap immediately. But if you don't react to that immediately, it's going to be a slack to you and it's going to count against you at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think coaches and players really have to talk about those incidents because they're crucial in the game. I've just got one more question. It's sort of focused around Argentina, but it's more general than that. At the end of the match, we saw Belensuki in floods of tears. It's obviously, an ecstatic moment for her. It's possibly her last chance at an Olympic medal. And in the past, Alex, this is linked, even though it sounds like it isn't. You've spoken about the fact that as a player, you're often very, very conscious of the reserves and the people who are not there on the pitch, and you're playing for them. Is something like the emotion that Belensuki showed today, is the fact that you've got people in the stands who aren't able to be on the pitch, is that an extra layer of motivation for the other players going into the game, or can it be a weight on your shoulders? And if we come to Alex first, but I'll ask all of you for your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think it certainly for me when I played gave me the extra edge. I don't think I'll ever get over the fact when we won our Olympic gold medal, our 17th, 18th and 19th were 100 yards away and not receiving it. I mean, goodness knows how they feel. Something I thought was lovely, which I don't know if you picked on in the game, was Mark Hager, the Great Britain coach, was stood with our 17th and 18th player. I thought that was really nice. He could have been on the field with his team, but he stayed with the players in the stand. So the emotion that you see from players. And I think with Suki, it's also, there's more there. So the London 2012 Olympics she missed. Obviously, she had her son. So, I mean, amazing. But at that Olympics, they won a silver medal. So her team has been there. She was very much in the team at that stage. And then obviously they didn't in Rio. So I think for her, she knows this is her last chance and her last chance at that silver medal. But I mean, the question you say around the reserves, I think it's tough. I'm delighted that the 18 are allowed to play. I know all countries haven't chosen to use them. but I hate seeing players in the stand. I hate it. I think it makes and breaks players, and our sport's not about that. So yes, the short answer is I think it will give players the edge for those in the stand. You want to win for them. You want to win for your squad back at home, and you want to represent your team and your squad very proudly.
Yeah, Megra, same question to you, really. I mean, when you're on the pitch playing, are you are you conscious of the people who perhaps should be there or can't be there or whatever it might be, and is that an extra layer of motivation?
Yeah, it's certainly it's a bigger motivation, and it's an honor as well, because who is your team? Your team is everybody on the pitch and off the pitch. So you need to do that for them, because everybody's wearing that badge on the chest, and you need to do it together, because the moment you go back to your country, you're all arriving at the same time, and it's either whether you played or didn't play. So it's quite an honor to be on the pitch, and it's an extra edge, like Alex also said, like it's a big motivation. You need to do it for them. You think about them. Even after a game, I remember when we recently played, and players who did not play, I go hug them first, and I just hold them, because they need to feel the same emotions, because they're part of it. Sometimes they might have a negative emotion of not playing. It's tough on them because they didn't experience what you experienced was on the pitch. But it's a big motivation for me, and you do it for them as well, and not just for you or the players on the pitch.
Yeah. Moving on to the second game, there's a team today that won that are probably doing it for an entire nation, and that's India. They went into this match. They were fourth in the pool. They came up against Australia, who had been unbeaten. They'd drawn 1 and won 4. India haven't been to a semi-final since 1980, which was obviously an occasion when many teams were missing, and they've been hovering around the sort of the upper 10th, 11th, 12th spot in the world rankings for quite a number of years. But they went on the pitch today and they took the game to Australia, and they gave an amazing performance. Jackie, what do you think that means for the Indian women's side, and more generally, what does it mean for hockey for females in India, in a nation that has got such a proud tradition in its male version of the game?
Yeah.
I can tell you today I ran into a news clip from India, and this is like the number one news that's in India. So it's a big deal. It's great for our sport, especially for India. And for the women there, sometimes there's a lot of what do you call it?
Sort of male dominance of the society.
Yes, a lot of male dominance in that society. So this is great for the young women playing hockey and any sport in that country. And it's a testament to the hard work that the Indian hockey have been investing in their ladies and their men as well. So this is really good news. I was actually really shocked by the news when I woke up this morning, but it's great. It's great for hockey. Unfortunate for Australia lost today, but really, really good for hockey. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, India were even. I mean, it was a great performance. They scored, as we said, in the 22nd minute of the match. Australia threw everything at them in terms of attack, but Savita made 9 saves. Deep Grace Eka saved off the line from an Emily Chalker shot. If Argentina looked hungrier early in the day, India looked absolutely ravenous for this win. They really did. But I just wondered, it's for Australia, is this a time for them to look at their preparations? Because, Alex, they haven't had the international experience that a lot of the other teams have had. They made their way through the pools very smoothly, but they didn't ever really get challenged. And this was a time when they needed to maybe have a plan B. So is this a wake-up call for Australia and how they prepare in the future?
I think it's a wake-up call for everybody, if I'm honest, because I think if people were honest, everybody probably looked at that result expecting Australia to win. But this format is brutal. You play a pool, and you want to win your pool, but as India have proven, you can finish 4th and go through, and you're suddenly in the top 4 in the Olympic Games. It's unbelievable. So I think it's, certainly a wake-up for Australia in terms of being adaptable and being able to look at tactics. Hey, that second half, India have won, and they're just going to camp out in their defence. So you need to make the pitch as big as possible. You need to take your chances when they come. You need to be really, really patient. So yes, lessons to learn. It's really tough to learn them at Olympic Games. But I think actually more broadly, teams are going to look on, okay, the quarterfinals are done now, but they are one game, second part of the tournament, it is in or out, and anything can happen in a game. Nobody ever walks on the field and is crowned winners. You have to play 60 minutes, and it's the best team on that day. Forget the history. just that day. And that's what India showed today.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of leads on to a wider point, and this is something that we just chatted a little bit about before the show came on air. For both the men and the women, we're seeing the Indian style of free-flowing creative play being tempered by maybe the sensibilities that are being brought in by the nationalities of their coaches. So we're seeing an extra physicality. We're seeing an increased emphasis on fitness and running to the very end of the game. That could well come from the Aussie influence of Graham Reid for the men, and obviously Siord Marin and Yannicka Chopman for the women. Question for all of you. Are we seeing almost a homogenization of the styles that means that we're going to see a change in the hockey hierarchy moving forwards? Because it's probably inevitable that these games we will see the Netherlands women, we might see Belgian men or Australian men take the medals. There's every chance of that. But for the future, are we looking at a strong India? Are we looking at a strong South Africa or other African nations, other Asian nations? Because we're tempering their qualities with qualities they're bringing in as well. And I'll go to Megrith first on that. It's a bit of a big question, but we'll see where we go with it.
It is a very big question, Sarah. No, but it's quite exciting. It's an exciting future. It's exciting something to look forward to, because there was this big gap between countries back then in terms of hockey, the standard of hockey in the different countries, different continents as well. Let me just bring it back to continents as well. And especially like when you compare Africa to Europe or Asia or America. But I think with the exposure and really like everybody, I think it will change, which is a good change for hockey. And you could see it, like if you look at the game between the Dutchman and South African man, for example, it was a totally different twist of hockey, and that is actually a proof of, I mean, you have 4 professional or semi-professional players in the South African team, and the rest played back home in their national league, and then you have this whole professional team, which is the Dutch team. But they had to fight till the end to really get the victory over the South African man. And it was not an easy one. And that actually proves that this is an exciting future that we're going into with hockey. And I'm actually very passionate and excited about it. And that is where the change is coming in. But it's a good change, and it's a positive change that we should always be expected for the unexpected, I think, from now on.
Yeah, brilliant. Jackie, same question to you, if you can remember that long question that I just asked.
I think with the merging of all styles from Europe, Americas, Africa, of course, and Australia, New Zealand, there's going to be a very big change in how teams come to tournaments. You can't underestimate anyone. You can't underestimate a team from maybe like if Chile was to be there, and you can't really underestimate because you don't know what kind of style they're coming with. You don't know what kind of tactics. Maybe they have new short corners. We've seen a wide variation of short corners from basically every single team that's come in. And now it's no longer about drag flicking. That fails. What next? And it's been amazing to see the differences and also the similarities in matches and in games. And also defensively, we've seen teams are able to defend better. There are some teams that never used to use presses efficiently, but now it's changing. So the margins, the merge of all these styles is really, really good for the sport. Yeah.
I mean, you can see it across the sort of domestic leagues of various countries as well. When you get people from South Africa coming and playing in Europe, or people from Australia coming and playing, there's quite a merge of styles. Very briefly, your thoughts on this, Alex, because I'm very aware we've got two matches still to talk about as well.
I was going to say exactly the same, Sarah. It's in the coaching world is now happening what's happened in the playing world for a number of years. Players are going to play in other leagues, and now the coaches are coaching all over in terms of in different international games. I mean, let's use Yannicka quickly as an example. She's obviously a very, very successful Dutch player. She's gone to coach in America. She's now the technical coach at India. And has she brought the strengths from those other nations? Absolutely. And she also has this pool of uber skillful women to implement her tactics and what she's bringing. So is it good for the game? 100%. Is it good for hockey? Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, moving on to the final 2 matches. history wasn't really on the side of New Zealand. Apparently, I heard this stat from one of the commentators today. In any Olympic match between New Zealand and Netherlands, going back to the early 1990s, Netherlands have never lost a match. So for Stacey Michelsen and her team to turn that around was going to be a big ask. And then what they found is they found the Netherlands in pretty dominant form, actually. I mean, Matler continues to look sharp in front of the goal. Velton found a way onto the score sheet again. Lauren Stam scored her first. And the defence looked really good as well. This is about team management, isn't it, Alex? You know, we're seeing a team that's not exerting itself hugely. They're managing the matches. When they need to defend, they are, and when they need to put their foot on the pedal, they are. But they're pretty much managing this whole tournament very nicely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, goodness, I feel for New Zealand, and I really feel for Stacey Michelsen. I think she's probably the best player in the world. She's been fourth at just about every competition there is, and she's not ever quite got to those medal games and being successful in Olympic Games. Yeah, I mean, Holland are number one for a reason. I think they really know how to play the game well. You know, I think other than the pool game against Great Britain, they haven't really been tested here yet. I think today's performance probably was more of that. As you say, they know when to turn the gas on. The likes of Velton and Matler, Zander and Bashir playing well within that team. I think, hey, they're in a really good spot. The one thing I think will be key for them is some corners, because I don't think they're not going to have many opportunities as they progress through the semi-final and the final. So I think for all the teams, they haven't been going that well statistically. So I think that will probably be the differentiator as they move forward.
Yeah, I agree. Mavis, you were nodding your head a lot on that one. That's something you've seen throughout this tournament, isn't it? This lack of ability to put the penalty corners away. And actually, amazingly, I guess it's because they've created so many chances, but the Dutch are the biggest victims of that, if you like. What's your sort of thought on that? Is it just that the defence are doing very, very well, or is it that these corners are just not hitting the mark?
Yeah, I think it's an unlucky. Yes, they've created a lot of short corners. They're not putting them away. I think in one game they had about 20 short corners. I think it was against South Africa, if not mistaken, for example. And they only put away 2 out of the 20. That's like the conversion rate was very low for a team at that level. And they are really managing the team very well. The players, they are versatile players. And that is what I like about the Dutch. Like you expect the unexpected, a player in a different role, and they will still complete or fulfill that role that needs to be done in there. So versatile, very hard on the ball when they need to slow down the game if they have to. So they're really, really managing well, and they're doing it really great. So, but unfortunately with the short corners, they're not putting it away. And I think to Alex's point, like semifinals and finals, if they progress to the finals, it's going to be vital. Every corner you get needs to be put away, or an opportunity or chance needs to be created.
We saw one penalty corner flying in the final game. Grace Bolsden put the ball into the top of the net. Alex, I wonder if I can hand over to you now just to talk about that game briefly.
How long have we got? So, as I said, I honestly have never, ever experienced watching and felt so stressful. But I think it was a very good game. Cracking start from Hannah Martin to dribble through. Slight error on the keeper's part, but the ball found the back of the net, which was fabulous. And I have to say, at that stage in the game, I thought Great Britain were looking comfortable. I didn't feel too threatened by Spain, but oh my goodness, that corner. You know, as a coach now, I've been thinking about, okay, how can you change up penalty corners? And just so clever to trap the ball a good 2 meters outside the circle, giving enough space for the deflector to be, you know, only 1.5 meters into the circle. Fabulous goal, 1-1. When the second goal went in from Grace, I'd been saying, come on, give it to Grace. You know, she trains, she can put it in the top of the net. I actually called it. You can ask my husband. I said, Grace, top right. In it went. He just looked at me like, really? And at that stage, again, I really thought the game was probably in Great Britain's favour. But all credit to Spain. I think they played very, very well. I actually think it was a very close, tight encounter. They obviously get it back to 2-2, but I'm afraid when it went to shuffles, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind. Players are petrified of Maddie. You know, she has a 40-inch stick, for goodness sake. She takes up most of the goal, and she's just so agile. She's so prepared. And as I said, I think people now go in fearing her, so she's already got that edge. But I definitely want to say Sarah Jones and Hannah Martin, you know, fair play, Sarah Jones particularly. That's one of the best shuffles I've seen taken. Really calm, really composed. You know, Maddie can save all the goals in the world, but somebody has to step up and score them. So, you know, fair play to those three for doing their job, and GB progressed through. So I'm absolutely delighted.
Thank you for that. Great summary.
Maybe the whole way through, sorry.
Jackie, you've got to spare a thought for Spain, though, because they're the comeback kids. They often come back towards the end of a match, and they've shown it again today. They were a team that started very slowly in this tournament, and one of the reasons for that is because their coach was actually not able to be with his team because of COVID, and we learned that later as well. They're a European side that always seems to be the bridesmaid, and how do you get over that? How do you, a bit like New Zealand really, how do you get yourself into a position where you start to believe that you're not going to finish in fourth, you're not going to finish in eighth, you're actually going to be pushing for medals and places in big finals?
It calls for a lot of unity in the team, a lot of camaraderie, and these guys came out today and they wanted to compete. They didn't come to lose. They were coming for Great Britain. I was kind of rooting for Great Britain, but when the match started, we couldn't tell who was going to win, and that kind of self-confidence, it's all team. It's a team effort, but just as a player, you need to be able to take yourself to that place. And today, I felt like the Spanish ladies really came to play, and those goals were amazing. Like Alex said, the first shot corner and the second goal, amazing. So bad result for them, but fantastic effort. Yeah.
They're certainly another team that's really added to the quality of this tournament. Because you've never known what you're going to get with them, which is great. Okay, that's brilliant. We need to wrap up by just having a quick look at the semi-finals and what we think is going to happen there. So, Megrith, I'll come to you first. The overwhelming favourites, possibly in the Argentina-India game, are going to be the higher-ranked team, Argentina. If you were the coach of India, what would you ask them to do to get past, Suki and the team?
Argentina is the Argentinian way. If they come with that Argentinian way, I think they need to have a solid structure in terms of just to try and break down that speed and that adrenaline. And I think that is always a winning factor for Argentina, because they come mentally in a game with so much energy. And I think that energy is what really twisted into this phenomenal game that they can play. And they have a lot of speed. That's one thing. When you look at Delphi and Margot, they have really a lot of speed up front there. And I think that's something that you need. You need to have defenders that is so well solid, and in terms of reading a game, experience will matter. I don't know in terms of experience in India. I'm not so well familiar with the team, but I know they need to really step up in terms of experience and really watch the zonal man and not too much on the man, because of the speed and the fitness, and that's the strength of Argentina as well. But I'm excited to see what India can bring, because they just turn around the whole hockey fans who thought Australia will win, and they prove that they can actually do something that nobody expected them to do, and that is actually phenomenal. And they might also do that against Argentina, so let's not take that away from them. But I mean, it's a semi-final for Olympics, so expect the unexpected. But good luck to both the nations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm guessing, Alex, you won't be wishing luck to both the nations.
I realised I'm wearing an orange top.
Yes, Alex, objective.
But I've got red behind me.
Well, if you were in that changing room with your GB colleagues on Wednesday, what would you be saying to them?
Hey, play our game. Just do your job. Do no more. Do no less. Know that Holland hate playing us. They would have seen that draw and be like, not the British again, because it's almost like we're now their nemesis team. So yeah, I'd just be like, do your job, stick on task, play the process. Hey, we're in an Olympic semi-final. This doesn't come around very often. They'll be ready, they'll be up for it, and I think it's going to be an absolute cracking game. I won't be wearing orange.
And Jackie, I'm going to place the difficult question at your door. Who are we going to see in the final?
It's difficult. Argentina versus GB.
Jackie, I really like you. Yes, Jackie. Yeah.
I think that was a bit biased.
Yeah, I'm not being biased. GB played really well against Netherlands in the pool matches. They were amazing. I thought they were gonna just come through, but you know, they lost 1-0. So I'm gonna bet on them and see. Let's see.
Wow.
Let's see. Come on. But the Dutch, we expect nothing less than 150% from them. So match on.
Match on indeed. Well, everybody, thank you so much for your thoughts today. It's been entertaining, lively, slightly biased towards GB from one of my guests here. But it was such a thrilling game. You're allowed on this occasion. But you know, this has been a fantastic day of action, and thank you so much for your insight and analysis. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Goodbye.